Welcome to Morning Motivation, where history's greatest minds fuel your grind. Want their secrets? Subscribe now and turn their wisdom into your legacy. Let's go.
A true champion isn't defined by wins. It's how they rise after falling. Serena Williams reveals her winning mindset. Serena Williams stood alone on the baseline, her racket dangling from her grip as she steadied her breath. The crowd in the stadium was a blur of noise. Some voices screaming encouragement, others gasping in disbelief. The scoreboard glowed harshly in front of her, showing the unthinkable. She was down a set and trailing in the second. The moment felt eerily familiar. She had been here before, countless times. Defeat loomed over her like an approaching storm, but she knew better than to surrender to it. Champions weren't defined by their easy victories. They were measured by their ability to rise after being knocked down. She closed her eyes, retreating into the reservoir of memories that had shaped her career. Beginnings of a fighter, Serena's journey had started on the cracked courts of Compton, California. She and her sister Venus had trained under their father's relentless guidance, waking up before dawn to perfect their strokes. The courts were far from pristine, the nets sometimes sagging, the surface rough. But what they lacked in luxury, they made up for with determination. She remembered the days when her body ached from endless drills, her muscles burning as she ran sprints with her sister. The times when people told her she'd never make it, that she didn't belong. She remembered how the world had doubted her, how she had been judged not just for her skills, but for the way she looked, the way she played, the way she dominated. She had fallen before, many times, but she had always gotten back up. The making of a champion. As she opened her eyes, she found her opponent on the other side of the net, bouncing on her toes, ready to claim victory. But Serena wasn't done yet. She straightened her shoulders and adjusted the grip on her racket. Her mind flashed to one of the hardest moments of her career, the 2015 US Open semifinals. She had been on the brink of history, a calendar Grand Slam within her grasp. The pressure had been enormous, and she had fallen short. The disappointment had been suffocating, the weight of expectations almost unbearable. But from that heartbreak, she had risen stronger. The same grit had carried her through injuries, through self-doubt, through the birth of her daughter and the struggles of returning to the sport. Each setback had only deepened her resolve. The comeback, she bounced the ball once, then twice. The noise of the stadium faded into silence. She tossed the ball into the air, her body coiling like a spring before she unleashed a serve that cracked through the tension. An ace. The crowd erupted. Point by point, game by game, she clawed her way back. She hit with precision, with power, with the raw intensity of someone who refused to accept defeat. Each stroke was a statement, each movement a testament to the years of sweat and sacrifice. As the final point played out, she found herself in that sacred zone where instinct took over. The ball came fast, but she was faster. With a forehand that carried the weight of every battle she had fought, she sent the ball sailing past her opponent just inside the line. The stadium roared. She had done it. Legacy of resilience. As she walked to the net, shaking hands with her opponent, she didn't just feel the thrill of victory, she felt the satisfaction of resilience. She had proven, once again, that a champion isn't measured by the easy wins, but by the fight within them. She lifted her arms, acknowledging the crowd, the people who had supported her through the ups and downs. But deep down, she knew this victory, like all the others, belonged not just to the world, but to the girl from Compton who had dared to dream, who had fallen and risen over and over again. As she walked off the court, she whispered to herself the words that had guided her throughout her journey. I really think a champion is defined not by their wins, but by how they can recover when they fall. And she had recovered. Every single time. Serena sat motionless in the locker room, her head bowed, gripping the handle of her tennis racket like a lifeline. The echoes of the final point she had lost still rang in her ears. A Grand Slam final, and she had fallen short. Again. She could hear the celebrations outside, cheers, laughter, the victorious opponent lifting the trophy. It stung, but not because she had lost. No, what burned inside her was the feeling of expectation unmet, of a moment she had worked for slipping through her fingers. Her coach entered, his footsteps soft but deliberate. He knelt beside her and placed a hand on her shoulder. "Serena, do you know what makes a champion?" She looked up, her eyes filled with unspoken words. He continued, "A champion isn't defined by their wins. It's easy to smile and celebrate when you're holding the trophy, but what defines you is how you recover when you fall." Serena inhaled deeply. She had always known this, but in the heat of the moment, defeat had clouded her perspective. She thought back to her childhood, to the courts in Compton, where she and Venus had trained for hours under the relentless sun. They had faced ridicule, doubt, and barriers that seemed unmovable. Yet they had pressed on. She thought about 2011, when she battled life-threatening health issues, and wondered if she would ever play again. She thought about the 2015 US Open, where the dream of a calendar Grand Slam had crumbled in front of the world. She had fallen before, and each time she had risen stronger. Serena wiped her face, set her racket down, and stretched her arms. The weight of disappointment was still there, but it no longer felt like an anchor, rather a lesson. Tomorrow, she would return to the court. She would train harder, refine her strategy, and fuel herself with this loss, not as a burden, but as motivation. Weeks later, at another tournament, Serena faced a tough opponent. The match was grueling, each point contested with fierce determination. She lost the first set, but something had changed. Instead of frustration, she found clarity. She adjusted, fought harder, and rallied. When the final point was played this time, she was the one lifting the trophy. As she stood before the microphone, she looked at the crowd and smiled. "I really think a champion is defined not by their wins, but by how they can recover when they fall." The audience roared in approval, but she wasn't speaking for their applause. She was speaking for every person who had ever stumbled, doubted themselves, or faced a crushing loss. Because in the end, being a champion wasn't just about winning. It was about resilience, growth, and the courage to stand up after every fall. Champions don't quit. They rise. How do you bounce back from setbacks? Let's discuss in the comments.